There it is. Okay, well, hi, Laurie.
No,
Well, thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation with me today.
I am always willing to have a conversation with you. Always.
Awesome. Well, this is the kind of conversation we're going to actually allow other people to listen to, at least bits and pieces, or maybe even the entire conversation, depending on how it goes. Are you up for it?
Yeah. Then we want to hear from them.
Exactly. Definitely, we want to hear from them. So, one of the most intriguing things as of late that had me ask you to talk to me today is this concept of deciding who we are. So,
Mm.
before we get into that, do you want to just like say, like your name and what you do, and then who you are, and then jump right into this conversation about who you are and why that matters?
So I'm Laurie Lewis. I lived in New York City for 25 years
Mhm.
where we were friends. And now I live in Portland, Oregon, and we're still friends.
Yes.
And over the years, back in my late 20s, it felt like an epiphany. In hindsight, it seems like a moment in time that I kind of woke up to the idea of taking good care of myself. And I never wanted to be the food police, but I wanted to learn more and more for my own self how to fuel myself well and eat
Mm,
nutritious food. And so that in some respects became my identity for myself, and others knew me as that, but again, I didn't like tell other people what they should stop eating or start eating. And then when I went through perimenopause, which they
mm,
don't say this to biology school for middle-aged women, all the symptoms came as a complete surprise, and I really suffered for about 10 years and suddenly gained 50 pounds. So I myself, as a person who had been taking care of myself very well for all those years, was surprised. And people around me in my life were surprised. And through a lot of research and suffering, I figured out,
yeah.
I learned a way to heal myself. And then other people wanted to know more about that. So now for 6 years, almost 6 years, I have been, as my business, coaching people. I'm a certified health coach, and I, through my own experience and uh, educating myself, I'm an expert in intermittent fasting. And most people think that's a diet. And I say it's not a diet, it's a quiet. And
Mm,
in that quiet, we have the opportunity to tune inward and have a communion with a reverence for our own body and let that guide us. We've lost trust in ourselves.
mm,
So, in this process, it's really expanded. It started, 6 years ago with people saying, how do you do that? So I teach them how to do that. And what it's grown into as I myself have expanded my awareness and understanding, that in that stillness, we can learn to trust ourselves and trust our bodies and let
mm.
it be easy.
Wow.
So I feel like I'm a stillness advocate, and that we, in our wild and overwhelming and crazy and unfair world, must, for our own sanity and knowing ourselves and knowing what to do next and knowing what to believe,
Yeah.
to create, carve out our own consistent daily tiny opportunities for stillness. And having a daily fasting regimen is one of those ways.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. You've actually said so many beautiful things in your little introduction and share. Um, so I'm going to tease out one thing at a time, right? So you can have an opportunity to respond. I love this concept of you created yourself as a, how did you say it? As a somebody who takes care of herself, right?
So if each person answers the question for themselves, and there might not be an immediate answer, it might be something to ponder for a good long
Mm-hmm.
while. I'm a person who, what would you say? So I am a person who takes very good care of myself right now, no matter what's
Mhm.
happening in life.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say my life. It's just life.
Yeah.
Weather, someone getting sick, me getting sick, life. And I I think we've all noticed that when life gets chaotic and overwhelming and uncertain and pressure filled and upsetting, the first thing we stop doing is taking good care of ourselves, if we ever did. So when I ask people, what do you do to take care of yourself? People will either think of this new fangled idea of self-care, which is to have a manicure. Not sure that's what I'm talking about. Or they'll say, I try to eat healthy. Just
Yeah.
like so I would love for people to think, gosh, what do I do to take care of myself? I carry my water
Yeah.
bottle around all day. Well, do you drink it? So, so I'm a person who takes really good care of myself right now. See, because the right now is not later, not tomorrow. Like I'm really starting tomorrow, gonna, take
Yeah.
care of myself. No, not that. Um, And so, if each person can think for themselves, like what's important to you, what would you say to yourself or others? If it's like, I'm a person who, I think people would say, I care a lot about my family. I'm a person who, like, what? And so,
Yeah.
whatever you would say to fill in the blank after I'm a person who, that is a matter of your identity. So, I'm very interested in knowing what people think of themselves, how you hold yourself, what you say about yourself. And because that creates all the rest of your thoughts and actions and structures and results.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I fully understand, right? Because of my own practice being guided around people reinventing who they are and having a say in that and eliminating everything that happened before that might be a burden to that, if that makes sense. But you said something really interesting when you were in your 20s and you knew yourself as somebody who takes care of herself. And then you went through perimenopause. And I know some of that from hearing your story even before. So I have a bit more context that maybe even people could hear now. But there was a moment when you were somebody who took care of yourself, and then the results you had, like the 50-pound weight gain, was not didn't seem like consistent with somebody who takes care of herself. So how did you see that? Say more about that. Like
Ooh,
how how did staying in this commitment to take care of yourself change when your environment or your circumstance, or rather your result, was seemed to be not directly correlated to what you wanted and what you said you wanted for yourself.
that is incredible. That's almost biblical. It like reminds me of Job in the Bible, right? So, it takes your question takes me back. I could just feel a very hard time for myself
Mhm.
because and my clients say this, they're like, I'm doing everything right. And, that is,
Mhm.
I think that's really hard for a human being. It's like, I'm doing everything right and I'm still in pain. I'm doing everything right. And these circumstances aren't lining up the way they should because I'm doing everything
Yeah.
right, you know? And so I would say that I never lost sight of the quest, I guess, to figure it out. Right. So
Mm.
there was a disconnect. I'm eating this way. I'm moving my body. I got very focused on sleep. I actually got really sick at that time. Also, I don't know if a lot of women, you've noticed that um, all the pressure and stress and pushing and all our body can't take it anymore, and then it goes through perimenopause, and around 47, 48, 49, the body's just like, stop
stops. Yeah.
Their autoimmune rises up, or so that's what happened for me. So I started seeing the signs of perimenopause at 44. So it had obviously started long before that. And then I went into menopause early at 49. The average is 52. For people who don't know, the way you know you're in menopause is you don't have your period cycle for a year.
Yeah.
Scientific.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
mark on the calendar a year. If you get it again after 10 months, whoop, you start the calendar again. Okay, so it wasn't until I was 54, so 44 to 54, 10 years of roughness, that
Wow.
54 is when I learned about intermittent fasting and started the minute I learned about it, I started, and I felt better in 3 days. But to answer your question, not only was I in physical pain, my shoulders, my elbows, my hips, like head to toe physical pain, mental, brain fog, memory loss. My equilibrium was off. Like even to walk down the stairs, I had to hold the railing, especially on an escalator, And so I just was off, but the physical pain was strong. I, in May of 2017, when I was 54, I remember feeling like so on the brink of whatever the feeling of giving up is,
Mm-hmm.
succumbing to the belief that maybe this is how it is forever. Maybe, which I didn't want to believe, that it's all downhill from here. It gets worse and more painful and more medication and heavier and lumbering and foggier. Maybe it just gets worse forever. And I was right there, like, maybe I'm supposed to believe that because
Mm,
this is not getting better. And
yeah.
I could not figure out. I knew there was an imbalance. It was obvious it was hormonal. It wasn't, it wasn't eating ultra processed food. It was just 100% hormonal, and I couldn't figure it out. But
Yeah.
somewhere there was this feeling like I would.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. I want to share something because, I happen to know you and know you from that period. And, for anyone listening, I think this part is really important. First of all, it takes something to have a manifestation of something you stand for or something you created. Like even gestation takes like 9 months, that's to create life, right?
Hmm.
Or 10 months more accurately. But I remember you from that time. And I think your stand for health was still there because I remember in retrospect, and you probably can remember it better, but you tried everything. You were trying vegan diet. I remember on Facebook you asking vulnerably of everybody like what they recommend. Like you were searching and you didn't give up. So your stand, you can argue, for a healthy lifestyle, for you healthy, was there no matter what you were getting as a response, as your bodily response to perimenopause and menopause, and being 50 pounds heavier than how you knew your normal self to be, especially as somebody who, I mean, I remember running in a park with you, somebody who trained for marathons, somebody who was obviously like a huge fan of just being in your healthy body.
Yes. And thank you for noticing that and sharing that back to me,
Mm-hmm.
because yes. And that's when I started my Vipassana meditation practice. Like I was really looking for how to be well. And what the immediate need felt like was feeling well. Like I just want to feel better. And
Yeah.
I think anybody who is getting whatever diagnosis from their doctors, or they are carrying excess weight and they feel like they want to lose weight, bottom line, everybody just wants to feel well. If you never had another mirror and nobody ever took another picture of you for the rest of life, you didn't know what you looked like, your clothes fit perfectly, like losing weight is not the issue. It's feeling well, feeling alive, buoyant, flexible, able to sit on the floor and jump back up and run around with little ones and pets and feel alive. People
Yeah.
actually want to feel alive.
Yeah.
So thank you for acknowledging that unwavering commitment that I had.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And And, you know, for me, it really is deep because it is about deciding who you are for yourself. Like, I'm the person who takes care of myself. And that now gives you access to using the tools that are at disposal, like being in conversations with people, asking for support where you need it. I think sometimes, like I know for myself, I'll speak for myself. Um, Sometimes I'm more committed, or I've been more committed to seeming like I have it all together rather than actually being vulnerable and asking about what I care about. Because who we create ourselves to be is really our like deepest truth, our deepest desire. And I feel there's like a seed of that within us already. And then
Ah,
if we voice that, if we speak that and share with people who are in our lives and get support around, then we can really have it manifest no matter what time it takes to manifest it fully.
that's right. And it just brings my thinking back to this idea of creating opportunities for stillness. And,
Mm,
people are like, I can't meditate, I can't quiet my mind. Okay, just think about this for a second. You could, as painful as it might be, sit in a chair with nothing around you
yeah.
and put your hands on your knees, be very comfortable, and set a timer for 5 minutes. Sit there and just think about your life. That sounds impossible for people, right? But it's what we most crave. Stillness.
Mm.
People standing and opening the fridge and standing at the counter and opening the cupboards and putting food in. Wait a sec. Put the food on a little plate or a little bowl. Sit down for a sec. Just sit down for a sec and look at how amazing that food is and have a bite and taste it and don't do anything else.
Yeah.
That's in our day in this time that we live in. That's almost unimaginable for people.
And
Except
yet
we,
so important and
oh,
actually crucial to having a peace of mind. Because like, I
yeah.
think, you know, I love intermittent fasting, and obviously like I have been re-inspired to do it after talking to you a few years back now, because we both experienced intermittent fasting and Vipassana. And I, as a teenager, was fluctuating a lot with weight. Like I would gain weight during winter time and then
Mhm.
lose it all during summer because I was more active and swimming all the time and being in water and exercising more. So I remember my grandmother's sister asking me not to eat after 3. She said, just follow the simple rule. And what I like about it is that it's simple, right? I think we follow things that are quite simple directions. So for
Yes.
me, it was that like I didn't eat after 3. And I actually remember the first time I made an exception and I had like a green apple, which was, you know, you think it's light and you think it's not gonna make me feel bloated or like that. But I remember having an apple outside of eating window, which again, I didn't have this language back then. I remember eating that apple and oh my God, like I felt so bloated after. I felt so heavy. So like it just really didn't work. So I think yeah, I mean, I learned that later from you, and you should speak to that a little bit. That like I right? Like I triggered a reaction in my body and like the food is coming and then the food wasn't coming. So my whole body was panicking in that moment, right? And being completely outside of this like regime of quiet time and the time when my body is actually resting and not eating and recovering from
Yeah.
digesting food.
Yeah, you learned. See, and we're all different. Someone else could have their eating window till midnight. So you learned that what your
Mhm.
body prefers is to have a midday meal or two, and to close your eating window by 3. And when you experimented with it, it could just be that one day also, right?
Mhm.
Just be a one-off, or it could be, yeah, my body is informing me, and I can get the communication from it because I am consciously and deliberately putting it into a repair state, a fasted state every day. I'm eating in an eating window of my choice, my design. That then when I do something that it doesn't prefer, it can deliver a communication to me and I can hear it. Whereas when we're drinking flavored drinks and eating food constantly from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to sleep, we can't get the communication from our body because all it's doing is trying to digest and sort out all the incoming stuff.
Yeah.
So then when it has a chance to rest that digestive process and turn its attention towards repair, deep cellular repair and healing and fat burning and being in ketosis and fueling our brain well, then those hunger and satiety hormones and all the network of over 80 hormones, which are little chemical messengers, communicators, it starts working well. And that's why when I started intermittent fasting, I felt well within 3 days. It had nothing to do with losing 50 pounds. Things
Yeah.
just got sorted out and quiet and grounded. And by day 3, I remember I was standing in my mother's kitchen and I had the thought, there I am. But that's a weird thought to have, right? I was like, there I am. And I felt clear and sharp and grounded and steady in my body and alert and present, like
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And I've fasted every day for over 6.5 years.
That's beautiful. It's such a great metaphor for life, right? Taking quiet time, giving yourself that opportunity to really ask yourself what's important to you. You're the person who, what is your answer to that?
Mhm.
And how do you really want to feel? Committing to that, and then being willing that your result may take a while because you're creating something new.
For sure. And then if whatever a person creates as I'm a person who fill in the blank, like it's got to come from inside you, from what inspires you, from what.
Yeah, it can come as a fix, right? Like, let's be
Oh,
clear about that, because I know
right,
our background is,
right.
really like understanding who we are on a soul level. So it's not fixing yourself because somebody else told you something when you were little, or because like you don't think you're
Right.
good enough. It doesn't come from there. Yeah.
And so then if I say, because this is what inspires me, I'm a person who takes really good care of myself right now, no matter what's happening in life, then it's very obvious when I'm not. And that's exciting and inspiring. It's like, wow, what could I do? And in that moment, it's like, what could I do to take care of myself right now? I could stand up and swing my arms around. I could, hold a forearm plank to see if I can do it for a minute. I could have a glass of water. I could think about what I'm going to be making later for my meal. So, and also what arises are, I think, either structures or rules for ourselves that would be or would not be aligned with I'm a person who. So, for example, because I'm a person who takes really good care of myself right now, no matter what's happening in life, I have a meditation practice. I don't eat in the car. It's turned into I fly fasted so I don't have jet lag. And then I was traveling many years, 2018 in your part of the world, around the Adriatic. And I got on a ferry boat and I thought, oh, I don't eat in a car. I don't eat in a plane. I don't eat in a bus or a train or a boat. There's no need. It's like I'm getting from point A to point B. And when I arrive where I'm going, I'm going to eat an amazing meal. That's my superpower. So I do have rules for myself that do not feel like a constraint in any way. They might take some focus and a little determination or some effort.
Yeah.
I know I will feel my best, which is the whole intention, if I have these structures or guidelines or rules that I follow. I always jokingly say too that I don't eat sugar except for when I do. Okay? So I'm not someone who has a sugar addiction. Like sugar doesn't control me. So I am able to
Yeah.
choose it or not choose it. Mostly I don't choose it because it doesn't make me feel well, So yeah, these are just things that I do or not do that are aligned with being a person who takes really good care of myself right now.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Knowing who you are, creating who you want to be, and then bringing awareness to when you're not being that, and practicing that in life with play and joy and
Yes,
and
delight.
and grace with yourself, right? Like that, it might not always like as you're learning, right? Like you're adding the boat to the no food in plane like that.
Right.
Like, so, I think this is a beautiful metaphor for life. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because sometimes when we talk about creating ourselves, one of my friends, was really honest with me, and she said, Marija, like you might not have a clue as to how scary that conversation may be. So it
Mm.
was really my intention to find something that is very kind of easy to understand, because when you talk about intermittent fasting and feeling well in your body, I think that's a great metaphor for people to understand that they have a say in a matter of how they live their life and what they have as a result.
Well, and I do believe that the more little snippets of quiet that we create and carve out, and we begin to respect and honor that tuning inward and
Mm-hmm.
asking your body and asking ourselves, and depending on what your beliefs are, tuning
Yeah,
inward and upward, right? That this connection to quiet, this still small voice, we have become addicted to turning outward for direction and guidance,
yeah,
and being told what is right and good and wrong and the perfect list of what to eat, and how we should be living our lives.
yeah,
Our perfect Instagram lives come externally. When we create and carve out our own moments of quiet, which I believe includes
yeah.
fasting, we get to trust ourselves and trust our bodies and let it be easy.
Yeah. It's really important. It's really important in a world where there's a lot of information and a lot going on, and we have this fast way of communicating and connecting, but not really connecting. I think having that, nurturing that connection with yourself first, and then from there building and creating life is so powerful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your morning with me and having this conversation. I hope it's really useful for people to just have something tangible to hold on to, and to help them really understand that they have a voice in a matter. They really get to decide who they want to be. And this simple tool, like tune in, like even if it's 5 minutes a day, just think about your life and see where that takes you.
Yeah. I mean, as Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there's space.
Space.
And in that space, we get to tune into our power and our freedom. And we are better in the world for others who are suffering when we are grounded and peaceful and loving. We don't need to suffer too to make the world a better place.
Exactly. One person at a time, and it starts with personal transformation.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Marija.
Thank you, Laurie.